Hello there, my name is Ismail. Welcome to another Blender 2.8 tutorial. So this is part 2 of the explanation video on how I made this bridge, and this time we're going to be looking at the texturing part. So let's begin with the simple things like this object here. So let's duplicate this. I will isolate it and remove these materials so that we have nothing like this. The first thing you need to do is UV unwrap the object. So you just go to edit mode and mark some seams. Seams are just a simple way to make a cardboard cutout of your object. So imagine this as a box, and you want to lay it out flat on the surface at the different areas you would cut out. So you would cut out this area here so that it, let me see, do we have this? Does this work? Yeah, so it would just fall down like that, and then you would add this seam here, so this would just fold up like this, so it would open like that. This would also open up like this, so until you get something flat, maybe that looks a bit like this, so that you can easily paint out the different faces. Yeah, I'm using a mouse to paint this. So yeah, but yeah, so that's a simple explanation of how UV unwrapping works. If you don't have the time, or you are unwilling to make those, how do I get these? Grease pencil. How do I get this out of the way? Okay. I just delete this. So that's if you want to get really good seams, you would that's what you do. You use you mark seams like this, and the way you mark seams is that let me add a cube here. Cube, where is this? I need to go out of this mode. So it's here. Isolate it. So the way you mark seams is that you go to edit mode. Let me go to UV editing here. The way you mark seams, okay, this 2.8 is still buggy. That's why you see things are disappearing and then reappearing. So the way you mark seams, you just go to edit mode and then select an edge. Then you can right click. Then the option is not here. You can just use U and then go under mark seam to mark that as a seam. And if you UV unwrap here, you can see because we only have one seam, Blender doesn't really know how to unwrap a cube with only one seam, so you need to mark a few other seams. You can experiment until you get an idea of how this works. So you can also use the shortcut Ctrl E and then mark seam. Make sure you are in vertex, you are in edge mode, otherwise you'll get different settings, different options for this. So make sure you are in edge mode. Now if we unwrap to unwrap, you can see you can also mark seams inside UV editor. So you can see we have a lot of stretching on this face here, so we can select, go to edge mode, select this edge here, so that we can reduce the tension on this object, on this face here. You can use Ctrl E again to mark seam and then hit U to unwrap, and you can see we have reduced some of the tension, and we still have a lot of stretching here. You can select this edge, Ctrl E, mark seam, unwrap, select this edge, Ctrl E, mark seam, unwrap, then U to unwrap. You still have a lot of tension here. So this is a simpler way to mark seams than just guessing which areas to mark seams here. So you would just do it in edit mode here, Ctrl E, mark seam, unwrap, and you see until you get something like this. And you can also apply a material so that you can see the stretching that is being caused with the seams you're adding. So if you add a new material and add a new texture, image texture, but instead of opening a texture, you just create a new one, and then in the generate type you set it to UV grid so that it generates a grid object, a grid texture. Then you can connect this to the color input and see this is a well UV unwrapped object. There is no stretching, and this type of texture allows you to see the different any stretching that might have been caused by the UVs. So if we go to UV edit and go to texture mode and Control E, clear seam, to clear all the seams, and then try to unwrap again, it will, because now in Blender 2.8 every object has UVs, default UVs. There is no stretching. So if we start marking our own seam, it will clear out these default UVs that come with the object. If we unwrap, you can see, let's go make sure, are we in textured mode? Yeah, we are in textured mode, but because the stretching is too bad, it appears that this object doesn't have any textures. So let's make sure we are seeing this. So if we mark another seam here, Control E, mark seam, unwrap, you can see the stretching on different faces. So you can see we have a lot of stretching here. So basically you just repeat the same steps. Select that, Control E, mark seam, and then U to unwrap. Did we mark? Select this, Control E, mark seam, unwrap. Okay, seems we have a bug again. Control E, mark seam, unwrap. Yeah, so you just go in and start marking seams and unwrapping until you see that there is no stretching anymore. So that's a simple way to make UVs. Another way to make UVs, you just ignore the seam and then use Smart UV projection. This works well if you have shapes like this, non-organic shapes. If you try this on organic shapes like this monkey head, I need to go out of object mode to see this. If you tried Smart UVs on this monkey head, so you can see it has default UVs, but if we use Smart UVs, it will just create a mess. But on objects, on shapes, on I don't know, sharp shapes, I don't know how to call this type of shapes. Basically on non-organic shapes, Smart UVs work really well. So let's go back to the texturing of our object, if I can find it. It's here. So I already marked the seams I want. So that's it. They're small because I'm also using, if you select these here, you can see I positioned them so that we can use the same UV map for these two objects. So the UVs for these objects are here, and the UVs for these are here. So this is a new feature in Blender 2.8. You can select two separate objects, two different meshes, go to the edit mode of those objects, and you can also edit the UVs of those objects at once. So I can move these around if I want to for that object. The reason why that this texture is not updating when I move the UVs, is because I have to separate UVs for this object. Do I? Yes, I have to separate objects, separate UVs for this object. And you can see now when I move these, those UVs do change. The textures do change. But let's go back to the texturing of this. So let's go to textured mode. We already have the UVs set up. So we can just create a new material. I've already gone through this a lot. If you're texturing with PBR textures, so you just find the textures that have let's use one texture. I think I used this one here. I didn't have the respective maps for specular, roughness, and normal maps. So what I did, I just used one texture, I fed it into the color to get that, and then use the color ramp. So Shift A, add convert color ramp, connected the color into the factor, and to preview this, Control Shift click the node to preview it using the node wrangler add-on. You can enable that in the node settings. I think you can go under, where are the settings? You can go under edit preferences, then add-on, then search node wrangler, and enable it so that you can have those shortcuts enabled. So we can preview this map here. So I can increase the contrast here. So the black areas will be the shiny parts of the mesh, and we're going to use that as the roughness. So if we preview this here, you can see the shiny bits here, and you can control that using this here. This is too reflective, so to make it less reflective, you can change this black node here into a more lighter node so that the reflections are more rougher. And if you want also some reflections on these other areas, you can make these a bit white areas a little bit dark in this, and you can see what we have there. So the other thing I did is I also used this as the displaced map. If you can feed it there directly, and if the displacement is too much, you can just add a convert math node between that and add a multiply and change the operation to multiply, and now you can control the bumps using this value here. So I find that 0.1 is good enough, maybe 0.05, and you can see the corner edge is a bit too light for me. So what I do is add some ambient occlusion. This is a new node in 2.8, and you can preview it using Control Shift and then click on it to preview that node to see how it works. But make sure you have ambient occlusion turned on. If you don't have it on, it will not. It will only show white. So you need to have that turned on. So what I do is add another color ramp here to control the contrast in in the corners there. You can also change the distance here to make the corners more darker, but this will affect all the objects you have in the scene, so be aware of that. And the way you mix this with the color node is that you just add a color mix RGB and feed this ambient occlusion to the bottom node, and then feed the color into the top node, and then connect this to the base color. Let's first preview this node. You can see this is how it looks right now, and because it's set to mixed, the bottom node is coming through more than the top node. So we just need to change this to multiply so that only the dark colors come through the texture. So you can see, just look at the corners there. If I reduce this, you see this is how it looked before, and this is how it is. So you just feed this into the color node, and you can see, so it looked like this before, and now with the ambient occlusion, we get that. You can still control the amount here. If you want to make it even darker, you can do that and play with that. You can see even it affects the insides as well. So yeah. And if you add this object, That ambient occlusion will also be added between where these objects meet. So you can see, you see how this is adding some dark edges here. So if we go to these materials, you can see this is the node I used. You can see it's also affecting that areas, making that darker. So it's a cool way to add, to amplify or pronounce that ambient occlusion that you get from this here, because I think this, only applying this is not enough. It doesn't produce the kind of ambient occlusion I would prefer, so that's why I add that there. So let's go to this bridge here. So for this, let's duplicate this, and then we can go to, let's remove the entire, all the materials. Yeah, so the first thing I did is that since I already have the material, I've made the textures for this, the concrete textures. What I did, I added that material there to this, and because I already have this UV unwrapped, I can simply add the material and it would work really well. And then, so the asphalt or the road texture is going to be applied to this here. So this is not mirrored. I think I applied a mirror, the mirrorable file. So yes, I think I applied the mirror modifier when I was trying to bake the textures. I'll do a tutorial on how to bake textures in Blender 2.8, so what was I? So we can remove this road texture, and you can see this is the concrete texture applied. Now we can add our new road texture. Now we can apply it assign it to the road like that. Now let's create the road texture itself. So you need the texture itself. So you can find that on cc0textures.com. You can find free textures that you can use anywhere in your project. So that's where I get most of my textures. So let me find that. So I think it's this. So I just created a new material. Make sure it is Principal BSD. The Principal BSD. Connect the color. So this is very basic. So the roughness and other parts we already seen how those work. So I won't go through all of those. So you can see the texture is not coming through because I'm using two UVs for this. Yeah, so this is the UV map and the way you make another UV, you just click on this button here and then unwrap the UV again and edit it the way you want, and it will be applied to that UV. Because we have two UVs here, I can just go to edit mode. I can go to the shader here and add an input UV map and select the UV I want to use. So road line, no, not road line, I think it's UV map. Connect this as my UV, and if we go to UV editing, make sure this is you can see this is how the road UV looks, the UV map looks. The first UV, this is the second UV. You see there's different somehow, but not that different. So the second UV was for the road lines here. You'll see why I made a separate UV for that. But let's go back to shading. Make sure this is using UV. the first UV map. But the textures are the textures here are too big. So what we can do is add UV coordinates. So input texture code, not these, they're called UV mapping. Yeah, how is it called? If you have the node wrangler add-on, you can just hit Control Shift I'm forgetting the shortcut to add the UV and the mapping coordinates, but I'm forgetting the shortcut there. I think it's let's see. You know what? I don't have time for that, so I will just go in here and copy the mapping. So this is the node we want. I'm forgetting where to find that, but I'll just copy and paste it directly. So just find that mapping node. Is it in? Yeah, it's under vector. So this is the node here. So then you can use that to scale. So let me first reset all these values. You can use that to scale the texture to what you want. Let's try 3 by 3. Maybe that's good enough. So that's the easiest part. So the other part is to make those road lines. So we can come in and find those road textures, those lines. I don't know how I called them. I saw they are here. So I also got this texture from CC0 textures. So you can just go there and find road lines. And the way I made this work is that I got the mask map. Where is that? I think it's this here. This is the color. This is the mask. And what I did is I added a color mix RGB. Then let's first look at the road line. The mask itself, you can see this is it, and it's being tiled right now. So if you set it to no repeat or extended, this is why I added a new UV map for the road line, because whenever I change this to extended, it would not be in the view. So that's why I used another UV map for that. And so where is our road line? I'll just create a new UV here, then unwrap only the selected UVs, rotate 90 degrees. Let's see why they're not showing it. And then we need to make sure that this is using that UV, so we can just go add a UV map, select 002 as our UV and connect that. You can see now we can edit these UVs without affecting any of the other UVs we have. So we need to rotate these lines 90 degrees so that they face that like that. Now we can scale it like this. Maybe we need it to be on this side, and we can go to the shading again and add some mapping so that we have control over this. So Shift A, vector mapping, put it between the UVs, and now we can scale this in any direction we want. I see we have that faint line that is going through. It's because we have this set to extended. So if you change it to clip, you won't have that line that is going through there. Now, if you want to move this to the side, you just use the location settings here. And so to mix this with this here, you just add, so where is this? You just add this mix node and bring this here. And if we preview this, you can see our road and our lines. But the lines are fainted, and this road texture is going through those lines. That's because we need to change the mix node to multiply. Maybe we also need to invert this so that this is at the bottom. Actually, this is supposed to be at the bottom, and the operation should be, the blending mode should be screen instead of multiply, because it's the black we want to get rid of. So you can see we have our line, but it's not repeated. That's because we have this set to non-repeat. So if we set this to, let me wait, how did I do this? I'm kind of forgetting how I did this actually. So let's see, let me preview this, because I'm forgetting how I made this here, how I made it repeat. It's a lot of nodes. So let's just go back here. I think you can go to edit mode and make sure that this here all fits within this texture here. That way we don't need it to repeat. Okay, I don't know why this is buggy and we're not seeing the texture, but it should be going through directly. And so there is some kind of bug here that is making it not come through. But the way you add the second texture, the other line on this side here, the way I did that is that, let me select this. I just selected this entire node setup, and duplicated that. So if we preview this, Ctrl-Shift-Click, you can see the second line is here, but we just need to play around with these coordinates so that we push them. It's the same node setup here, but you can see we have this on this side and we have this on the other side. It's the same setup, but the difference is in the X values here, and you can just use another color mix node. You can see, and change this. See, one side is showing the left side and another one is showing the right side, but we need to show both of them. So we need to set the blending mode to screen, because we want to get rid of the black side of one node here, so that it can go through, it can show through all those. I don't know why this is happening here, this artifact here. And do we have, I think we have a mirror modifier turned on. for different axes. Let's see. Yeah, it should be just the x-axis. So it wasn't a bug, it was just that I had this turned on and it was going through the mesh. The mesh was intersecting with the mirror modifier. So now we can, I think, scale this in the y-axis. So let's see, so that it fits the entire line. So make sure it is 1, and also this is set to 1. Because our UV here fits the entire line, you can see it's stretched all the way on the mesh. I don't know if my explanation makes sense, but yeah, just bear with me. So from there, we can mix this with this node here, with this color node, with the road texture. So you can see previously we were mixing only one line with this color node. So we can just, instead of using the node, the line that is coming from this node, we can just use this color node here. Now, if we preview, we get our 2 lines. And now we need to add the middle lines. So if you want this to be a different color, because I think I made this a different color here. If you want this to be a different color from the other line, what you do is, let me see. So what you do is first, so we have this. Sometimes you need to take a second to understand your nodes. So this is the color node for the road. We need to make one of these lines yellow. So what we can, and so this is the line we want to change the color for. So we can add a color mix node here and change the color. Let's use this as the factor. Change this to yellow or any color you want to use. Make sure this is black. So now we can let's see. So we have this and we have this. Yeah, so you can just duplicate this node here and mix it here. We need, and you can use this node here as the mask. You need to do some practice to understand some of these things, but let's see. We need this to change to mix. Yeah, you can see now we have that, but we are getting some kind of artifacts there, some rendering issues. So what you can do, let me see. Now, you know what? Yeah, I showed you how to do that, so you can just follow the the time lapse to see how I made that, because I'm kind of forgetting how I made some of these nodes. But yeah, let's continue with these lines here. So for these lines here, you just again duplicate this node, any of these nodes, Shift D, and I move the let's see. move the axis of the line to the middle, and you can scale it in the Y direction. And let's move this in the Y axis as well. So you can see we have one line. Now we need more than one, so we can duplicate this again. Add a color mix node. Connect this to the bottom or anywhere. Connect this to the top. Change this to multiply. No, sorry, to screen. Let's wait. Need to change this to screen. Because we are using the same nodes, they're on top of each other. So what we need is change the Y value here. And you have your two lines. So if you want more, you can again just duplicate this. And connect this. And again, come back to this mapping and change the Y value. Like that. And you can add your array. Sorry, we still need to add this on top of this here. So we just need to add another mix node. Connect these, and this has to be at the bottom, and this the top. So this is the road texture. This is our, and you can see we get that. And now you can add your array with a Y offset, and you get your road. So if you're seeing this, I think this is because the UVs are somehow rotated. You can see this here. Let's try using smart UVs. Okay. You can just come here and rotate the UVs so that they are straight, or straighten them using by scaling them in the x-axis and with a zero value. But basically, that's how you make the road texture. If you want to edit those lines so that these are you have even lines here, you just come here and edit the coordinates up here. Play around with the coordinates until you get what you like. Yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like. If you want to get the project files, you will find them on my Patreon page. And yeah, that's also another way to support me. Thank you.